I found my dead mother's letters and exposed the lie about my father that destroyed everything I believed. The box was covered in dust when I found it in the attic. Inside were letters tied with a faded blue ribbon, and the first one I opened started with, "I watched him take his first steps today through the fence across the street." My father supposedly died 26 years ago, but Mark's letters dated from 1998 to 2015 told me he'd been watching me my entire childhood from the shadows, and my mother had been keeping his existence a secret all this time. I'm 28 years old, and until 3 days ago, I had my life figured out. My dad was a hero who died in a car accident when I was 2. My mom raised me alone, worked 2 jobs, never complained. She was my rock, my everything. Then cancer took her 3 months ago, and I've been slowly going through her things, trying to hold on to pieces of her while letting the house go. The attic was my last stop. Boxes of old clothes, Christmas decorations, my school projects she'd saved. Then I found it, a shoebox, pushed far back under the eaves, like someone had hidden it deliberately. Inside were dozens of letters, all addressed to my mother, all from someone named Mark. I sat on the dusty floor and started reading. The first letter was dated April 1998. I would have been about 2 years old. Mark wrote about seeing me at the park with my mom. He described my red jacket, the way I laughed on the swings. He wrote that it killed him to be so close but unable to hold me. He said he understood why she made the choice she did, but he hoped someday things would change. My hands were shaking. Who was this man? I kept reading, letter after letter, year after year. He wrote about watching me start kindergarten from his car down the street. He wrote about seeing me play Little League when I was 7, how proud he was when I hit my first home run. He wrote about sitting in the back row at my middle school graduation. He knew everything about me, every milestone, every achievement, and I'd never seen him once. In a letter from 2007, when I was 11, Mark wrote something that made my blood run cold. "I know you're protecting him from my mistakes. I know what I did can never be undone, but James deserves to know his real father didn't die. He deserves to make his own choice about me when he's old enough." Real father? I dropped the letter like it burned me. My mind was racing. My father didn't die? My father was alive, or had been alive, and writing to my mother for years? I tore through the rest of the letters, desperate for more information. In a letter from 2012, when I was 11, Mark mentioned he'd gotten a job at a warehouse and was finally stable. He asked my mom again if he could meet me. She must have said no because the next letter apologized for pushing. In 2014, he wrote about seeing me at my high school graduation. He said I looked just like him, and it broke his heart. The last letter was dated March 2015. He wrote that he was getting older, that his health wasn't great, and he just wanted one conversation with me before it was too late. He included his phone number at the bottom. I sat in that attic for 2 hours reading and rereading those letters. Then I started searching the rest of the box. Under the letters were photographs, old ones from the 90s. My mom looked so young, maybe 22 or 23. She was with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, dark hair, strong jawline. He looked happy. On the back of one photo, in my mother's handwriting, Mark, summer, 96. I felt sick. Everything I knew was a lie. I called my Aunt Rebecca, my mom's older sister. She was the only family I had left. When she answered, I didn't even say hello. "Who is Mark?" The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she sighed, long and heavy. "Oh, sweetheart, you found the letters."
"Tell me everything," I said, "right now." Rebecca came over within an hour. We sat at my mom's kitchen table, the same table where I'd eaten breakfast every morning of my childhood, and she destroyed the foundation of my entire life. Mark wasn't just some guy. Mark was my biological father. He and my mom met in college, fell in love fast, got engaged. Then, when my mom was 4 months pregnant with me, Mark made a terrible mistake. He was young, broke, and desperate. He broke into a house with some friends, trying to steal electronics to sell. They got caught. Mark got charged with burglary and related offenses. He went to prison for 5 years. My mom was devastated. She had a decision to make: wait for him while raising a baby alone, with everyone knowing her fiancé was locked up, or start fresh. She chose fresh. She told everyone Mark had died in an accident. She moved to a different part of town. She raised me as a single mother, and she made sure no one ever questioned the story. "She thought she was protecting you," Rebecca said, tears in her eyes. "She didn't want you growing up as the criminal's kid. She wanted you to have a normal life." "But he got out," I said. "The letters! He got out, and he wanted to see me." She nodded. "When Mark was released, he came looking for her. She refused to let him into your life. She said she'd built a stable world for you, and she wasn't going to let him disrupt it. But Mark didn't give up. He moved to a town 30 minutes away. He watched you from a distance. He wrote those letters every few months, begging for a chance." "Did you know?" I asked. "All these years? Did you know he was alive?" She looked down. "Yes. I begged your mother to tell you when you turned 18, but she said you were better off not knowing. She said Mark had made his choices, and she'd made hers." I was furious. At my mom for lying, at Rebecca for keeping the secret, at Mark for whatever he'd done that landed him behind bars. But most of all, I was furious at myself for never questioning anything. My mom had been vague about my dad my whole life, and I just accepted it. I never pushed, I never demanded answers. Is he still alive? Rebecca pulled out her phone and showed me a Facebook profile. Mark Stevenson, 54 years old. Living in Riverside, the next town over. In his profile picture, he was smiling at the camera, holding a golden retriever. He had my eyes, my nose, my jawline. I was staring at an older version of myself. He still asks about you, Rebecca said quietly. Every Christmas, every birthday, he messages me to see if you're okay. He's never stopped caring. She gave me his phone number. I programmed it into my phone, but didn't call. Not that day. For 2 days, I walked around in a daze. My wife Sarah found me staring at my phone at 2 in the morning. You need to call him, she said. You'll never have peace until you do. What if he's a terrible person, I said. What if my mom was right to keep him away? Then you'll know, Sarah said. But don't you deserve to decide that for yourself? She was right, but I kept hesitating. I'd call up his number, my thumb hovering over the call button, then I'd lock my phone and put it down. I was terrified. What would I even say? Hi, I'm the son you've been stalking for 26 years? It felt absurd. I talked to my friends. Half of them said to respect my mom's wishes and let sleeping dogs lie. The other half said I had a right to know my own father. Everyone had an opinion. No one had an answer. Then, yesterday, I was going through more of my mom's things and found her journal from 2003. I almost didn't read it. It felt like a violation. But I needed to understand why she'd done this. In an entry from June 2003, she wrote, Mark called again today. He's been clean for 3 years now, has a steady job, says he's changed. Part of me wants to believe him. Part of me wants to let James know his father. But I'm scared. What if Mark disappoints him? What if he leaves again? What if James hates me for lying all these years? I built a good life for us. Sometimes I think the kindest thing I can do is let James keep believing his father was a good man who died too soon, rather than a flawed man who made terrible choices. Am I wrong? God, I hope I'm not wrong. I closed the journal and cried for the first time since my mom died. She'd been terrified too. She'd been doing what she thought was best, even if it meant sacrificing the truth. She carried this weight alone for decades, but she'd also taken away my choice, and that I couldn't forgive. This morning, I woke up and made a decision. I got in my car and drove to Riverside. I didn't call first. I didn't warn him. I just went. His address was easy to find online. A small house on a quiet street. There was a truck in the driveway and a well-kept lawn. Normal, unremarkable. I sat in my car across the street for 20 minutes, working up the courage. Then the front door opened, and a man stepped out with a dog, a golden retriever from his profile picture. He was tall, graying at the temples, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. He looked tired, but kind. He walked to the mailbox at the end of his driveway. As he turned to go back inside, he glanced at my car. Our eyes met, and I watched his face go pale. He stood there, frozen, staring at me. I got out of the car. My legs felt like jelly, but I walked across the street. We stood facing each other on his driveway, 5 feet apart. James? He said, his voice cracking. Yeah, I said. It's me. He started crying. Right there on his driveway, this grown man I'd never met started sobbing. I can't believe you're here. I can't believe it's really you. I found the letters, I said. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Your mom, she passed, didn't she? I saw the obituary. I'm so sorry. We stood there awkwardly. Then he gestured to the house. Do you want to come in? We can talk. I followed him inside. His house was clean, modest, pictures on the walls. I recognized some of the faces, distant relatives I'd met, family gatherings. And then I saw them, photos of me, school pictures, printed from Facebook probably. My high school graduation photo, a picture of me and Sarah on our wedding day. He'd been watching my life online, piecing together what he could. We sat at his kitchen table. He made coffee, and then he told me everything. He didn't make excuses for what he'd done. He said he'd been young, stupid, and desperate. He said going to prison was the worst thing that ever happened to him, but it also saved his life. He got clean inside, got his GED, learned a trade. When he got out, he was determined to be better, but my mom wouldn't let him near me. He understood why. He said he probably wouldn't have trusted himself back then either. Though he did the only thing he could, he stayed close without interfering. He wrote letters. He showed up at public events where he could see me from a distance. He watched me grow up through a lens of regret and hope. I wanted to respect your mother's wishes, he said, but I also couldn't just disappear. You're my son. I missed everything. I missed your first words, your first day of school, teaching you to ride a bike. I missed it all because of my own stupidity. But I needed you to know, even if you never knew I existed, that someone out there loved you, that you had a father who cared. I asked him why he never fought harder, why he didn't go to court, demand visitation rights. Because your mom was right, he said. You were better off with stability. She gave you a good life. I would have just complicated things. And honestly, I didn't trust myself not to screw it up again. I was terrified I'd let you down. We talked for 4 hours. He told me about his life, his job, his regrets. He asked about me, my wife, my career, my hobbies. He wanted to know everything. And the strangest part, it didn't feel forced. It felt natural, like talking to someone I'd known my whole life. When I finally left, he walked me to my car. He said, I don't expect anything from you. I know I don't have the right, but if you ever want to talk again, I'm here. I've always been here. I drove home in silence. When I got back, Sarah was waiting. How did it go? I told her everything. She hugged me while I cried. I cried for the father I never knew. I cried for the mother who'd lied to protect me. I cried for the 26 years we'd all lost. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if Mark and I will build a relationship or if this was just closure. I don't know if I can forgive my mom, even though I understand why she did what she did. But at least now, the choice is mine. My mom spent her whole life trying to protect me from my father's mistakes, but in doing so, she kept me from knowing a man who spent 26 years trying to make up for them. Maybe she was right, maybe she was wrong. I'll never know for sure. But at least now, the choice is mine.
Write what you think about this situation. Also, if you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos. See you next time. Bye-bye.